Now, welcome to the Wednesday, May 7th, Rockport School Committee meeting. For the record, this is being recorded audio and video. And for the record, we'll go around and introduce ourselves, starting with June.
June Sanfilippo, Business Manager.
Mark Lorenz, Committee Member.
Nicole Altieri, School Committee Vice Chair.
Kathy Riley, Chair.
Good evening, Mark Branco, Superintendent.
Amy Oakes, School Committee Member.
Jessica DeLisi, School Committee Member.
Thank you. The first order of business is approving the minutes from April 16th, 2025. They were in the drive. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the above minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, now is the time for public comment. Do you have anybody here who would like to step up to the table? Okay, great. Dr. Branco, is there any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Are there any donations?
No donations.
Any personnel?
No personnel.
This is screaming right along. Okay. Student Advisory Committee is not here, but does anybody have a success or anything else they want to share?
So we have a lot going on in the last, I guess the general statement is this is sort of the culmination of the year, right? So it's all downhill, as I say, from here. We've got 5.5-ish weeks, 6 weeks tops. Kids are finishing up MCAS exams in schools. I think we just had high school students taking their AP exams recently. We have a lot of culminating activities coming up. Civics projects in the 8th grade. Our sports teams are in full bloom playing. And we have a show this weekend. Is that correct? Yep. Right. So middle school drama fest and then high school. So we've got a lot going on. I would encourage people to check the website. If you go to the website, click all 4 boxes on the calendar. That's the way you get everything that's happening. It'll take over your phone. You'll be able to scroll through all the events and take a good look. But we have a lot of culminating activities coming up in the next 5 or 6 weeks, really coming to fruition with our seniors and graduation. So we're excited for the spring, hoping the rain moves out soon, and really looking forward to celebrating our students and our staff for the end of the year. So before we move on, I'm going to take over and let people know that this is Kathy Riley's last meeting as a school committee member, and as chair, she has done 2 terms, 6 years. Is that correct? 6 years, 2 terms, and so I just kind of want to put the meeting on pause for a second and recognize Kathy for her time and commitment to the Rockport Public Schools and the community. You know, some of us in this room get paid to do this crazy work, and there are other people up here who do not and volunteer a ton of time, personal time and effort to really make this the best school district they can. So it's been a pleasure to work with you and for you as the chair, and for my 3 years with you. I've been in a lot of districts, seen a lot of school committees of varying types, and I keep saying how fantastic this school committee is to work with, and you have been really strong in your leadership and in your advocacy for students during your time on the school committee and from what I understand before that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We do have, I opened this so the box would actually open this time, of learning from the past year. So we have something small for you.
And I got tulips too. An apple, my apple. I earned in my apple. Thank
You have
very
earned it.
much.
And I do know that Drew Tara is also here tonight from the Hill. So I think he's got something for you. So if you might actually have to stand for that. And if anybody's got a phone with them and can take a quick picture, that'd be fantastic. So you're going to have to go out front for it.
I have a citation from the House of Representatives for your years of service in the Rockport School Committee. Be hereby known that to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincere congratulations to Kathy Riley in recognition of your years of service on the Rockport School Committee. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 7th day of May 2005 at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, signed by Ron Mariano, Speaker of the House, and offered by Ann Margaret Ferranti, State Representative.
And I know we have some people from town leadership, if anybody wanted to come up and just press the button on this mic and say anything. Yeah, only you could stand if you want, but only because I'm going to get yelled at by the TV people who can't hear you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Branco, and Kathy, thank you for your 6 years of service on the school committee. I, too, did 6 years, so maybe Select Board could be in your future. In fact, I think Amy Rose was in high school when I was in this school committee. But on behalf of the town, we just want to wish you all the best and thank you for your service. As Dr. Branco said, it's being on the school committee is not easy. You got to make some tough decisions, and you don't get paid for it, similar to the Select Board. But you do it for the love of the community, and you obviously love the town of Rockport, your adopted town, and we thank you for everything that you've done for us. So, you're welcome. Oh, and I also have two of my colleagues here, Laura Evans and Don Southard from the Board of Selectmen, Select Board.
30 years in Rockport, and I'm still not a local. That's a It's been an honor and a privilege, and I will miss knowing what's really happening with the schools. Hopefully, I'll still be signed up for the newsletters, so please don't take me off the list. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna, in honor of taking or giving more time to you, we're going to take the State of the State update now from Senator, from, who are we? Drew Tarr. I'm like, this says Bruce Tarr, but that's not quite right.
So Drew Tarr is filling in on behalf of Representative Ferrante's office tonight, and so he has, I'm sure, some good insight into what's going on. And what I shared with the school committee, just so that the public knows what's going on here tonight, the North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable, which is a group that I'm part of, invited our legislators to a legislative luncheon sometime mid to late March to really sort of talk about what's going on in the state around education, some of the things that we feel are going well, some of the places where we really need extra support. And some of those topic areas included federal funding and the state's response, the financial outlook for education, and how community after community are facing deficits in general, managing their budgets, but that education in general is kind of hitting the towns hard. The rising cost of healthcare when it comes to employee healthcare specifically, and the cost of special education, particularly transportation and fiscal sustainability around special education. And then we asked about the millionaire's tax and the impact that could or couldn't have on education as well. So happy to have Drew here tonight. And so the way I set it up with Drew is I think he's just going to sort of give us an overview of what the legislator has been working on behalf of public education and how that could impact Rockport. And then once he's done, maybe we open it up to the committee for follow-up questions or conversation. So the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. As was said, I'm Drew Tarr. I'm District and Research Director for Representative Ferrante. I'll start by saying the superintendent roundtables, which I didn't get to go to this year, but we had a member of our office, Nina Goodek, who's our community liaison, attended, is probably one of the best vehicles that I've seen in my almost 9 years working with the legislature now in terms of effective communication to the legislature, to the members who can then bring it back, discuss with each other, discuss with leadership in terms of getting the challenges that we face addressed. So kudos to superintendent and all of our superintendents who participate in that. Instead of just going through my list and giving you a bunch of numbers, I'll try to slot some of these in to that framework from this year's superintendent's luncheon. Obviously, federal funding is sort of Damocles over everyone's head, everyone that we talk to. I know there's ongoing talks about what can be done, will be done in terms of the funding. I can't say I'm privy to those discussions, but I know the senator and the representative are always talking to House leadership, Senate leadership in terms of what that is, because obviously $16 billion is what we get from the federal government for our budget, which was a little over $60 billion. That's a big chunk. If the mass of that decides to vacate, it's not something that can be easily backfilled. And so I know those discussions are very sensitive in terms of what priorities are made if and when that comes. Special education, I think one of the first things, as I said, one of the first events I went to was the superintendent's luncheon 8 years ago, and the first thing I heard about was circuit breaker, which at the time I had no idea what it was, but I got a very, very quick learning on that. So the House has passed a FY25 supplemental budget, which dealt with surplus fair share funds. And in that alone, we put another $190 million for circuit breaker reimbursements. That is for FY25. In the FY26 budget, which the House passed last week, we have $483.2 million for circuit breaker. And in that FY25 the House also asked the Inspector General to investigate what is the root of these rising special education costs, because obviously we're very fortunate to have the fair share monies coming in now, but it's not an endless supply of money that you can just dump into what seems to be a black hole of special education funding. So obviously that's something we'd like to address. The millionaire's tax, I'll give you a rundown of some of the things that the House has done in that supplemental budget and then in this year's budget. As I said, $190 million for circuit breaker, $50 million for capital improvements of vocational schools, $40 million for early education and care workforce, $10 million additional, $10 million for FY25 for universal school meals, which I know we've heard great things about how much everyone loves. And as a parent, I have loved universal school meals as well. $10 million for Green School Works, which is a grant program to decarbonize and increase efficiency in schools through green energy projects. I know we went to an event a couple of years ago now at Rockport where one of the students was looking at how could we put solar panels on the school. And so those sort of discussions fit really nicely into this sort of grant program. And a $58 million disbursement from the Student Opportunity Act Investment Fund for payment of additional reimbursements in FY25. For the FY26 budget, fair share investments included $360 million in child care grants to providers, $240 million for minimum per pupil aid, which was at $150 per pupil for this upcoming fiscal year. $190 million for universal school meals, $53 million for child care supports, $50 million for school transportation reimbursements, another $20 million for Green School Works, and $15 million for early literacy. Lots of numbers. And then I think I'll just give you sort of the rundown of the rest of the FY26 budget. While the what we call UGA, Unrestricted Government General Aid, was level funded this year, the Student Opportunity Act and the legislature's commitment to that meant that the Chapter 70 funds got a $257 million increase over last year, putting it at $7.121 billion. Of that, Rockport's going to be seeing $1.726 million. Again, it funds the fifth year of a 6-year implementation for the Student Opportunity Act, enacted in 2019. As I said before, $150 per pupil minimum aid, $199 million for 100% charter school reimbursement, $122 million for regional school transportation, and $28.7 million for homeless student transportation. So the FY25 SUP dealing with the fair share funds from the previous fiscal year will be taken up by the Senate tomorrow. It's passed the House, and then the Senate budget is going to be done this month. And I think the House and Senate have some differing opinions on fair share monies, mostly around transportation, so not too much affecting you guys. But that's obviously something that gets worked out, and then we come out with a cohesive budget at the end of the fiscal year. So I'll stop there and take any questions that I can.
So I guess just before we do the questions around the table, like my thoughts around it are, you can see the increases and you can see the advocacy coming out of the State House, and you can see the work. And I think what's hard is it's all long-term projection stuff, and this has been the frustration for the boots on the ground people for a little while now, right? It's there, and changes are there, and monies do get increased and reallocated. But it's a slow-moving process, and so then every year, town after town and school district after school district are struggling to balance the budgets and to make difficult decisions. So I think, if we can ask anything of you when you go back, it's just to make sure those conversations happen about, while they're doing the long-haul work, we're still looking for the short-term fix.
Absolutely.
Like, we know you can't rebuild Chapter 70 overnight. It's a nightmare of a thing, and it takes a million smart people to figure out maybe how it works. So we understand that, but at the same time, and I don't want to use the term earmark because I know it's an inappropriate term, but where you're doing small budget work and where you're doing supplemental work, I guess that's where we need to know that the small towns like Rockport, who are trying to maintain a really robust school district and provide our taxpayers' children with the best education we can, in some of these areas around municipal budgeting, particularly, and special ed costs and transportation, those are some drivers that are, and the healthcare coverage. Those are some three major drivers that are crippling a lot of small communities when I talk to my colleagues. So I think that's all I can ask, is that you go back and thank them for the long-term work, but how do we dig into feeling anything next year, I guess. And so I'll kind of turn my mic off and turn it over.
Thank you for coming. I kind of wanted just to mention that advocating piece for emotional and behavioral health of our students. I believe it was Senator Tar came a couple years ago and talked a little bit about the money that was being allocated after the pandemic for some of the mental health. But I feel like it's something that the schools can't address just on their own, and more help is needed from the community, whether that's counselors, therapists, inpatient, outpatient help for our students. I feel like that's just something that our community, our society, we need to continue to address and not let fall off the radar.
Absolutely, thank you. And my wife is a teacher, so I know she sees a lot of that every day and how much we ask of our teachers directly. And obviously, they care very much. I can tell you, my wife cares very much, and they bring a lot of that home with them. And it's not easy, and it's definitely something I'll see if I can get any more numbers, and I'll send them along.
I just want to take a minute to thank you for coming. I really appreciate that. Mark, thank you for saying that. I forgot about that also. Yeah, it's very important. That's maybe not a school per se issue, but it's the inpatient that is not being addressed, especially pediatric. So I echo that for Mark, but thank you for being here.
Yeah, and we have sort of, like you said, it's not necessarily education, but I think as a society we've sort of asked schools to see to these wraparound services and not necessarily put that into any sort of structure. So I know it's definitely a conversation that's happening about what can we do to address that.
Kathy, may I ask a question? Oh, I gotta go to the microphone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, come on, we'll let the school committee finish, and then you're on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
We've just had a wonderful MASC, Massachusetts Association of School Committees, meeting with our legislators just yesterday, in fact, and we reviewed legislative priorities for this session. One of them deals with creating and supporting curriculum for financial literacy for students. I suspect that has been around for quite a while. And I noticed from what we learned yesterday and from what we have in our notes that the proposal is to fund materials and teacher training. But I think about what it's like when our plate is already full. And I would imagine if your wife is a teacher, you understand this intuitively. You can't add more and more and more to the plate. Even if you pay for the curricular materials and the teacher training, you still need a teacher, and you need room and a schedule. If we pass legislation that creates more required curriculum, do we carve things away from existing curriculum? Do we ask current teachers to teach less of what they currently teach in order to teach more? Do we add time to the school day to make room for it? I suspect there's really, really a lot of support for the idea. I think I would just speak up on behalf of school systems which wind up on the back end with a really great idea, suddenly trying to figure out, where do we put this? How do we fit it in? Not so much, there's a great training, how do we get someone to go, but literally, how do we work it into the master schedule? What year do we do it, and what do we drop in order to do this, if we're really going to do it with fidelity? So as you go back and you talk about adding more to the plate, I wonder, is there ever anything that comes off of the plate, or is there more time, or are there more people? Because it sounds wonderful, really good for kids. I would like kids to know about cryptocurrency and loans and taxes. I just leased a car. If you don't have a cell phone and Wi-Fi and mental math, you can't figure out what the best deal is to do anything. So since that seems to be out there, I just want to put a plug in for remembering there's not a lot of capacity to keep adding and adding and adding. Though we think that is an excellent idea, I wonder if there would ever be a conversation about how to give a school system more capacity at the teacher level, more time, more personnel. Great idea, but how do you actually get it done?
Great. Thank
So-
you. I'll take that back.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming, Drew. I really liked what you said about the fact that the legislature is going to be looking at the whys on special education costs rising, and how, for example, there was a huge increase in the tuitions for private special education schools when we send kids out of district for services they deserve and they need and they should have. The way that those costs and those tuition raises are determined, I would encourage the legislature to look at. It seems like it's determined by a very small group of unelected people. And that's something that was a huge driver of special education costs for us. And I know lots of districts, with being so small, it was a real shock to have it go up so much in 1 year a couple of years ago. So I really encourage the legislature to look at why costs are rising the way they are, again, to give kids services that they deserve and that they need. But I think that needs a closer look.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Paul Murphy from the Select Board. Drew, I'm just wondering, I hope this isn't an unfair question, but has there been any discussion at the State House about increasing the funds for school choice? When school choice came in '93, it was $5,000 per student. Is it, what, $7,500 now?
Still 5,000.
Still 5,000.
Never changed.
Yeah.
The difference is when you've heard probably a prior superintendent talk about the average, that's including special ed services for certain students. There's
Okay,
a
yeah.
formula, but the base one is $5,000, which is the original amount passed.
Okay. So if we could, I think that's certainly Rockport relies on school choice greatly. It'd be nice if there was an increase to that. So, but I'll mention it to Bruce and Ann Margaret as well.
Absolutely. And I'll take it back, see if I can find any information on it.
Great. Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
I think that's it. Thank you, Paul.
I think that's it. I mean, at the bottom of this agenda, just so people who are paying attention to us tonight know that one of the other conversations we did have as a superintendent's group is the importance of the partnership and the feedback loop. And so our jobs are difficult, your jobs are difficult, we get it, and we are working on the same problems of practice, so to speak, but from drastically different angles. So I think these kind of meetings, even though it's a lot of numbers and it's a quick hit for you tonight, if we do legislative luncheons, and then we do Day on the Hill, and then we do 1 or 2 sessions like this, if we continue to partner with towns and municipalities with legislature, or school districts with legislature, I think the advocacy piece is the only way we get some of this work done. Some of the rising costs, even if you can explain them, aren't tolerable anymore, to put it frankly, right? And so it's just every community in the Commonwealth is going to ask for an override over the next 5 to 10 years. It's not even a debatable point. It's just going to be override after override to either keep your town or your city open or your school district open. And something has to give. And those of us boots on the ground are feeling that one vote 1 year at a time. So we appreciate the partnership and the work. But yeah, I think that's the message. It's, short term and long term. And right now it's a ton of long term work, and I get it. But so thank you for coming out, and we're going to keep plugging away.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
So, thank you for being here.
Just
My name is
introduce
Dwight
yourself.
Valentine. I have a quick question about the status of Senate 454, which addresses special education, and is, as in Senator Tarr's own words, proposes to be a stem to stern study of all the aspects of special education. Do you have an update on that? I had a quick communication 3 weeks ago with Ted Thomas, who's your counterpart, I think, in Senator Tarr's office. And he advised that the matter is before the Joint Education Committee and will soon be scheduled for hearings.
So off the top of my head, I don't have anything, but I think we'll probably see something soon in terms of hearings. The legislature updated their rules this year so that all the bills get a hearing within 60 days of being filed. So you're seeing a lot of rapid fire hearing notices come out. So, but if you give me that number again, I can put it on my tick list and send it along.
Okay. Another question is, and related question is that I understand Senate Bill 455 is the funding mechanism for the study. So an update on that would be useful as well.
Sure.
I don't know that I personally don't know that necessarily they progress together in the process, but you'll let us know.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the 60-day change is an important one to note. That is a boots on the ground move. So that's evidence when we talked about the superintendents. That's a move that they made because they realize how slow everything's moving. That if they don't put these timelines on themselves, quite honestly, some of these things will sit around on the floor forever. So I do appreciate that answer. Thank you.
I think especially in this case, in this case as well,
Yep.
because the deadline in the bill for completion of the study is May 1st of next year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Awesome. Thank you.
okay, great.
Thanks,
you.
Drew.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move back up to the subcommittee updates. And looks like policy subcommittee is the big winner tonight.
So we have a second read on section J, the student section, which is the clean version that you had from a first read from the last time. So if there's no follow-up question to that, in a minute we'll be able to seek a motion to do that. And then after that, this is this is the drum roll please night. So this is the night where we actually get to do a final approval on the full updated package. And so I was just sharing with Amy and Mark before the meeting that I shared with them in the drive. I spent the weekend and some time in my office yesterday literally reading every single policy one more time and comparing those to Amy Oakes' fantastic meeting notes to make sure that everything was represented. And this is the short list, and it is actually pretty short compared to the amount of policies we're doing. So this is the short list of cleanup that Alicia has in front of her right now. And so we're treating these as Scrivener errors right now. So she's going in and making the cleanup. So when you take your second motion after your second read on J, and you take the motion to approve the whole thing in form for July 1st, I just want the committee to know that she's going through these. I will stay in communication with her the whole time, make sure all of these happen. I'll do one more close read on the bullets, and then after that, the next steps would include Alicia and I talking about the mechanics behind all of this. If you recall, the whole policy book will be housed on the MASC server, not on ours, and then the technology team will figure out what that looks like with a link right off our website, and then we will work with leadership at the building level to talk about how all of those hyperlinks connect to our student and staff handbooks to make sure everything's clean for when we flip over to July 1st and then open the doors again at the end of August. So before you take any motions or votes on these, I'm just wondering if anybody has final questions or comments about this amount of work.
I think it would be great if at some point we had some kind of an update from somebody on your team about the plans to update staff, because a lot of this is really minute. But there may be some places where people really do need to pause and go through. So we certainly don't need that now, but perhaps sometime before school starts or when school starts, it would be appropriate for us to hear just a quick update on here are the 4 or 5 different ways that we've helped people, because there's absolutely no way we would ever expect anybody in the system to go through this and understand what, I mean, that's insane. Yeah, so I think that would be great, just to close the loop, to make sure we feel like we really gave people a shot at going through and thinking about whatever affects them.
The first step that I have booked is we're going to meet with leadership, and I'm going to parcel out the policies that really are operational, and then I'm going to parcel out just the technology or just those that impact student services, and we'll hold kind of, instead of asking, the principals to literally read the whole thing, we're going to pull out the really important salient stuff that connects to the work, and then let the principals decide what next level, what has to get done to teachers and stuff. So I'd be happy to come back in that first August meeting and kind of give you a process update. That'd be great.
I just wanted to thank Mark and Amy for all your work on this. This is amazing. It's great, and thank you, Mark, for sort of bringing it to our attention that MASC could help us with this, and we didn't have to do this drip by drip by drip in the never-ending policy manual updating. This is going to be a much better, a much more updated way to do this, and I'm so excited that it's done. I've been in a lot of different meetings around town and committee meetings, be like, it's almost here, it's almost coming. The advertising, the wellness policy, all that stuff. So I think it's great, and thank you so much for all your work on this. We appreciate it.
And I imagine we need to have a subcommittee continue, right? Because at some periodic schedule, right, we would check in to see whether there is anything that's come up that we
Right.
need to review.
So when we reorg at our next meeting and we start to have conversations about what the subcommittees look like for the following school year, we'll frame that out. My colleagues that have done this before me have had conversations where they have like a quarterly meeting now. Just, either with the MASC rep or just with the superintendent who's in touch with MASC, just to say status quo, no worries, or we got a couple that are just coming in. And don't forget that we have 2 different school district attorneys too, the school committee's attorney and our special ed attorney, who will often give us updates. So now we'll get those from the attorneys every now and then, kick them to MASC for review, and then come back to your committee.
And this is a contract with MASC, right? We pay MASC to house the policies and to alert us when legislation changes that would suggest a change in policy.
Correct.
That's great. Thank you.
So first up is the second read of Section J, students, the clean version. So does anybody have any questions or comments that have come up that have been addressed already? Yeah, they're pretty clean. Yeah. Okay, well then may I have a motion to accept the clean version of the presented policies in a second read, Section J.
So moved.
Second? I thought you said save. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, great. All
In favor.
you know that I always have a problem with this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. Okay, so this is the final approval of the entire updated policy book. This is sections A through L. Do I have a motion to approve sections A through L as previously approved in the form effective July 1st, 2025, and to rescind all prior versions of the policy manual?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fabulous. Wow.
2 years. Thank you to everybody who was part of that work. 2 years right there.
That would have never happened without Alicia and Mark and Amy. Thank you so much. Okay. So we move into the update on the RTA joint committees.
So Ms. Goodyear is going to join us on this one. So just to remind everybody that when we signed a 3-year contract with the RTA, that there were 2 articles left that we collectively, the negotiation team on both sides, did not want to slow down the process of ratifying and implementing a new contract. So we had agreed to have 2 joint committees, one to review and update the stipend structure, and the second was to take a look at Appendix G, which was the teacher evaluation language. And if you remember, Rockport Public Schools participated in a classroom teacher evaluation pilot the previous year, knowing that these changes were coming. So we sort of had a nice leg up in partnership with the union to learn about what was happening. And so Jody's going to give us just a quick overview of the work that's been done there. I do want to acknowledge the 2 committees. So these are the names and positions. This was a really nice partnership, a lot of meetings, a lot of work. I think some really professional discourse on behalf of the district and the students and the staff to come to some consensus on some difficult topics that needed to be adjusted over time. So thank you to everyone who participated in both joint committees, and I'll let you
So
go.
outside of these 2 committees, but related, we did update the curriculum coordinator job description as well, which is there for you tonight. That was not a negotiation. That was a spirited discussion, I would call it, with the principals and the RTA co-presidents who currently each hold one of those positions, so they really know the work involved. Given the fact that we are combining those to cover more grade levels, despite there being less staff, we had really good conversations about how to shift the responsibilities of the role. A lot of it comes under my office now. That takes some of the load off of those teachers. But we did update that job description, and that is connected to the stipend committee, which just completed their work. So you have the job description that you've reviewed as well. I'm going to jump to B first because B is done. The evaluation committee, that was the easier lift. We had already signed an MOA on adding that new teacher rubric in and using that this year. And the staff, as much as the administration wanted that language changed because it was very, very long, very detailed, very in-depth, it went back to, I think, 2014 when the state put the new evaluation model in. And there was a lot of Rockportification to the DESE language that just was really messy. So we were able to pare it down, really make it do what the practices are happening in the building now, review what observations should look like. That was the big change in there. It's not that one observation for 45 minutes once a year. It gives a little more flexibility for the evaluator and the teacher. I was looking for the comparable word to make an agreement to do maybe 3 20-minute ones over the course of the year if they have different roles or different teaching areas that they're in. So that committee went from November and wrapped up in March, and we came up with that, and they have recently, through 100%, ratified that. So that language is on the table for you to ratify currently. The stipend committee has taken longer. It's messier. That was a lot of work to create tiers for the stipends so that everything fit in the appropriate tier. And instead of having a laundry list of all of these things at the high school, all of these at the middle, all of these at the elementary, now they fit into the role. Is it 1 hour outside of school? Is it an hour outside of school plus traveling? If it's a math team or a chess team that travels. And that's it. We have a really, really good draft. And we did meet last Thursday, which was May 1st, so we met the deadline, not to bring for ratification, but to have the language done. And that one is going to the RTA for ratification now. So that one, I believe you will see at the next meeting that you guys would be able to vote on that one.
Any questions or comments about either one of these joint committees or job description work? Again, thank you to Jody and Amy and Anne Marie as the leadership team members for working with the unions on this, but go ahead.
I really appreciate the work on Part B, the appendix, on Part A. I understand what was done, but I can't remember whether there was a financial impact when that was done. And so that is my question. After we reorganize and recategorize and get every sponsor or coach in the right spot, on the right line, so to speak, will there be a financial implication, and have we planned for that?
There will be. It was not the intent, but when we tried to make everything fit into the right places, there is a financial impact that Dr. Branco can share with you.
Yep. So once it's ratified, June and I and Jody will kind of crunch that final number. So when I put that in your drive for the next meeting to take a look at the structure, there'll be a total cost with it, and then we'll talk about how that has been planned for. But it is coverable. There are some spots where some have gone up and some have gone down. It's not a wash, but we're going to make it work within the budget and within some of the reserves as part of the good faith agreement with the union. The good news is long term, this puts us in a really clean situation. We have predictable stipends. We have predictable budgeting now. The way they were set up, some years stipends ran, some years stipends didn't. Some years we made agreements where you and I would split a stipend because that was the only way we could make it work. I think previous to that, Superintendent Lebo would freeze certain stipends and say we're not going to pay out, or we're only going to be able to pay out at 75%. And now technically you're kind of breaking a contract when you make those agreements, even if somebody else agrees to it. So there will be a financial cost. It's not going to be a giant number, but it's well worth the investment now to clean all of this up and then have us in a good position. So when we build the FY 26, 27, 28, 27, 28, 29 budgets, it'll be very predictable.
There's a lot of detail in that document, so when it's presented next meeting, I can answer any specific questions about those shifts and changes and why they were made. That committee was a little bit bigger, and there was a lot more input from the entire RTA into what should and should not happen. One of the big things that we did put in is it also gives the principals the ability to create a new club based on student interest, which would replace something that maybe there were only 2 kids interested in. So that was something that they couldn't do before. So there's been a lot of name shiftings and let's call this that. And I'm going to, are we going to meet every other week, or are we going to meet every week? So I think the language is a lot cleaner and it's a lot clearer what the responsibilities of the roles are. But when you have it in front of you, I think you'll really have more questions for me at that point than I could answer right now without you having the
I'm
document.
glad you brought it up. I think the student voice piece is really important to talk about, it tied to this work, because these are extracurricular or co-curricular opportunities for our kids. So, if we have a group of kids that really are interested in doing esports, either as a club or as a legitimate MIA activity, we would like to be able to offer that and compete with other school districts in those areas. So the flexibility to have a principal have students come to them or staff members come to them and really meet the needs of kids, differently every year based on who's coming through our door that's a good win for us. So.
So, do I have a motion to approve the updated curriculum coordinator job description as presented tonight and as in your drive?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, and next is, are we ready to go through Appendix G? Okay. So I would also like to get a motion to approve the updated Appendix G Rockport Public Schools teacher evaluation as presented and to be included in the current RTA contract. Do you have a motion? Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor? Aye, thank you. Okay.
So again, thank you to leadership team members and all of the members of RTA. This was work that we knew was coming, but it was above and beyond, and I do think it was well done, and we deserve to have difficult conversations around this work, so I appreciate that. I believe Jody's going to stay with us and jump right to kind of an end-of-year curriculum update, so you just tell me when to click and I'll go.
Okay, so last year we did a very, very long, very, very detailed state of the curriculum report on every curriculum area. So what I wanted to start with was touching back on what the next steps and or concerns were of the staff from that presentation. So that is what you see here, is what those were in each different area, and then how we have addressed them in terms of performing arts. That is, there have been repairs to that space. There have been construction in that space. And Mark is working with the fine arts coordinator to find ways to create more funding opportunities for both performing and visual arts moving forward, specifically the performing with the music department. The English language arts, we had talked about senior electives, and that is something that will continue. The middle school is having focused win blocks to address the student support models, and we have devoted time to the claims evidence reasoning in PD this year. And we've added the instructional coach who you saw last time, so I won't even talk about that. In terms of health and physical ed, PE, we've been able to add a pre-K to 12 department time in monthly, so even the elementary staff is able to go over there and meet, and they are still working on unpacking those frameworks and trying to think about what kind of curriculum resources they need to be able to implement what the state is asking them to do now. They have, the DESE offered free professional development, which Darlene and Max have taken part in, so that is helping them move forward.
So we moved, I think, am I correct, it was 20 years?
Yeah.
At least since the last health and wellness framework was updated in the state.
I think it was longer, yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know, when we say they're still unpacking, I just want people to understand the totality of that work. You know, the state, for whatever reason, you know, finished the LA curriculum frameworks, the math curriculum framework, science, technology, and finally, over a long time, got to health and wellness. So they've got 20 plus years of revisions and unpacking and changes, because clearly human beings and specifically students are much different now than they were 20 or 25 years ago.
Yeah, and a big piece of that were skills moved for grade level. So figuring out where it was before and where it moved next. They have put together crosswalks for the teachers to help them see that. But and we have a brand new health teacher as well in that area. So it's been a lot of work, and they're continuing that work. In history and social studies, that was also a big focus on claims evidence reasoning. If you remember, they called it document-based questions with the AP courses. And we did complete a curriculum review for U.S. history for the high school. And in the elementary school, in terms of aligning the resources, they've done a lot of work with the HMH Into Reading program. And most of the social studies standards are covered within the readings that are nonfiction in that program already. And those staff members were able to take part in our curriculum review. So they were able to see all of the resources that would be used in higher levels. And when we get our samples, there's a lot of stuff that we use as a supplemental resource after we have a free sample in the district. In math, it's also claims evidence reasoning, but they call it skillful problem solving because it's a little bit different. And they have worked on piloting those problems in their classes and developing that curriculum. And they did a 6-12 goal this year of they did peer observations of each other to give each other feedback on the teaching practices and see different things. And in the elementary school, we did talk about this last meeting in terms of using the data analysis protocols to look at data trends and really incorporate more student discourse into the classroom. That's a big, big part of the iReady in the elementary school is the student discourse piece. Science, technology, and engineering, we also did a curriculum review in 6 through 8 for this year. And in the elementary school, they had added some supplemental resources, bringing mystery science back into the resources in order to cover areas that FOSS might be missing based on grade level alignment to the state. In world language, that was something that was clear that they were very, very concerned with the shift in the schedule coming into this year, where it was going to be less time on Spanish, but just I checked this out with Mrs. Rose's schedule, and 95% of the 8th graders are going into Spanish 2 next year.
That's great. Wow.
I'm just pausing a second because
It's a
figured
lot.
if there are any questions about that before we move forward into the...
I just think that's a great format.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
I
Good
think
to know.
that's a great I do. I think it's a great overview. I think it's a lot of information, but I think it's great.
Well, and when we talk about supplemental resources, I think we just have to remind ourselves that, you know, I don't know, I'm dating myself now, but whenever Common Core hit the country, you know, Massachusetts, once again, because we're Massachusetts, doesn't just adopt everything else. We're first in the state, we're first in the nation, and so we have our own frameworks, and we sort of dip our toes into Common Core. So when you adopt nationally published materials, there's going to be gap fills because ours is different than the Common Core that's approved in a lot of other states. So there's added work from the curriculum team and the teachers to kind of figure out what supplemental resources or where the state alignment needs to be kind of massaged so we can get it in the right grade level with the right material.
The curriculum council, that is the district curriculum council. There's one that's secondary for the curriculum coordinators at the 6 through 12, the middle high school level, and then there's another group for the elementary curriculum coordinators. And these were our focus areas as a group. And we came up with these areas at the beginning of the year together through their feedback, their input. And the big focus areas were, of course, on course and content development, which is always going to be something that we're working on. A lot more on instructional practices with the UDL, inclusive practices and student support models that we've talked about with the MTSS implementation and the WIN blocks at every level now. And we talked about data analysis last meeting as well, but that was one of our focus areas, and the last one being the curriculum review. And we did 2 areas this year that I just mentioned. And Mark, I don't remember if I talked about them in another future slide or if I need to talk about them now. Nope, they're on the next slide. Okay.
There's your answer.
So these were our 2 curriculum reviews that were happening this year. U.S. history got moved up because of a need. It wasn't this year, but we moved it up. So we have our new curriculum review cycle, so we know which year each content area is coming up for review, and we can track how long we purchased the materials for. So science and technology was up this year, but U.S. history was a need. So we, back in November-ish as well, we've met with that committee once a month, and we've reviewed a bunch of different resources and used the state recommendations of what they think are good things that are aligned to the frameworks. And through this process, we are not done. We meet next Monday, but I already know where we're going with it based on the rubrics that all of the committee members have filled out and the 2 teachers who will be teaching U.S. history in the high school next year. That the choice is going to be Savas Interactive U.S. History, and they are going to go with the online digital resource version instead of the giant textbooks that the kids can't take home anyway. They can't write in, they can't highlight. So this will give them the opportunity to use those resources online, print out any materials that they need for students in packets, and they'd like to spend a year with that in the digital resources before they spend money on textbooks that they might not need. We're seeing a lot of actual colleges move away from hard copy textbooks now as well, so the need to learn textbook skills is not as important as it used to be in the past. And the reasons for the choice of that particular program are there. And that's, again, based on the rubrics from the committee members. 6 through 8 science was up next. That has been something that's ongoing. They've always looked for a lot of different supplemental things. Something maybe to remind you of is our content area teachers from 6 through 12. We don't really purchase a lot of curriculum programming. They like to write their own. They are the specialists. They write their UBD understanding by design, backwards design models of their own content and use all of the different resources that they can find. So we have backfilled with supplemental resources in science a lot. So we pulled that together to see, is there something that would work for them as well that would make the load lighter to lift for the teachers in the classroom? So we reviewed that list, again, based off of what DESE recommends and the Curate and the Ed reports and where they're coming from. And that committee has finalized their choice, except what they've chosen is Open Sci Ed, which is an open source resource. It is free. So the reasons are there as to why it has been chosen. And now there's a caveat is we're not going to fully implement this in 6 through 8 at the moment. We can get a grant through the 1-8 Foundation, which is funding a lot of high-quality instructional materials right now. And what that does is it pays for 3 years of summer professional development for the teachers implementing the Open Sci Ed. And then it will help us pay for the resources as well to have print materials through maybe a Kendall Hunt will print workbooks for the student. They also have can't remember the name, but there is an online digital science interactive workbook that we could use instead. Those are the two areas that we're not going to spend the money on yet, and that is actually based on the teachers who'll be teaching the courses next year, because one is now shifting to being part-time in 6th grade and part-time in introductory physics in the high school. So that's a big shift for her. And then our teacher who will be teaching 7th and 8th grade has given us the preliminary thoughts that she is only doing 2 more years. So she would prefer we don't spend the money on her getting immersed in all this training when she won't be implementing it. It'll be a new staff who needs to come in. So as soon as that shift changes, then we'll go back to this Open SciEd, look at it, make sure it's still the right resource, and look for the grant funding. And if not, we'll fund it through our teaching and learning budget to do the full professional development for whoever that new teacher is and the 6th grade teacher, to implement that with some print materials and other resources if we need to.
So 2 thoughts, if you recall, we've talked about during the budget season, we talked about adding to that curriculum review cycle line and how important that is. And I have in the past equated this to trying to make sure you don't have more than 1 or 2 car payments in your driveway at a time. And so that's the hope here, is that we can build a cycle that's repetitive. And so Jody has been working hard, and I did this in the first couple of years. Jody's picking the ball up. We're trying to get to the point where when we negotiate with vendors, we're doing a 3 to 5 year purchase plan and implementation plan, so that as one bill falls off, so to speak, then you can roll right into the next curriculum area. And that extra influx of money that we put into this line item is really what makes this tick and makes this sustainable for us over time. It also gives teachers and kids, teachers and students, a really good opportunity to remain in high quality instructional materials in the classroom. A quick comment about the Open SciEd. Open Ed resources have come a long way in 20 years. They are peer edited, they are reviewed, they are developed by professionals, and they are highly competitive. And there are backdoor ways that they're making their money, and then they do try to want you to get the supplemental resources that make them more manageable and user-friendly. But I don't want anybody to think, just because it's open source or it's free, that we're going with something that's lesser. The science department is really a high-functioning group of professionals who have really taken a good look at these materials.
And the last bullet on that for the choice is it is highly rated by DESE, the science peer review in Next Gen Science, and the 1-8 Foundation, who I know vets things highly. So that's a big piece of it. And just one more comment of that, the teaching and learning budget, almost half of it is already committed to another contract we have with another company for the next year of their implementation. So it's not like that whole budget line was available for these resources.
Right.
I'm just thinking that we just spent 2 years updating policies that were over 20 years old, right? When we went through the policy manual and we looked at the dates, we just marveled at how long it took to get to this work. And in this case, I think it's really important. Students deserve the best resources we can put in front of them in real time. And they don't have 2 or 3 years to wait for great resources, because they'll be in 9th grade by that time. And so I really appreciate every teacher who's willing to spend time in the summer to go to training so that students get access to new materials and curriculum that's, delivered with fidelity and pretty quickly.
And these veteran teachers are willing to implement all of these resources now without wasting the money on the training that they're not going to put into play, because after that training, they won't be here. But they're going to start using these and implementing these. So we'll have a better idea, even in a year, if this is really the true way we want to go. But I can tell you it is. And I mean, it's Curate, Ed Reports, everything. This is one of the highest rated out there.
Thank you.
I just threw a couple of pages together of highlights of what has gone on over the course of this year. And the one that's highlighted, I really wanted to highlight that because the curriculum coordinators and the middle school staff, it was such a collaborative and respectful experience of working with them to redesign the middle school model and to shift the roles of the staff. And they have been working together since those decisions were made in department time and in professional development time to make sure that the next person coming into their grade level or content area is up to speed on what needs to be done. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that was probably the biggest highlight of the year. And the AI is the newest. It's probably something we haven't really talked about as much yet, but we've been able to do some professional development in this area, and we have developed guidelines. So not a policy, but guidelines for the use of AI in the school by staff and by students. And we have started rolling out our professional development for the students to use, for the staff to use the AI tools to help them with their lesson planning, and we have a plan for that implementation for students for next year and teaching them to use it the right way.
This was another area where we had staff members volunteer to go out to Western Mass with Jody and a small team and to sort of learn from some AI education experts. Basically, it's happening, right? The box is open, you can't put it back in. And so we need to make sure that staff members are trained well on the pros and cons of AI, and that our next generation of adults and our current students can figure out how best to use the tools to enhance their learning, to be more productive, but to avoid the traps of plagiarism and the quick fixes that AI offers and often could get wrong if you're not careful.
Yeah, Mark asked me to take some people, and it was in Northampton.
That's a beautiful spot.
About writing policy
The
and
Iron
guidelines,
Horse, a
and I
great jazz
thought
club.
no one's going to want to do this, but I had 3 staff members come with me, and it was great. We came back with guidelines in hand, and Mark should probably share those with you soon too, so you can take.
So
a look
yeah,
at
there'll
them.
be. I think that'll be the August kickoff. Like,
Okay.
come back and talk about 1 or 2 highlights that we're going to hit the ground running with. So that'll probably come to that first meeting.
And then the last highlight has money attached to it. So the project Lead the Way, just an update of, we decided not to write an expansion grant for the 6 through 8 this year. The staff is just really getting solid in what they're teaching now. So we'll try to expand the 6 through 8 next year with the gateway courses. And our second round of funding is coming in for this year for our engineering expansion. What that's going to do is our current 6 through 8 gateway teacher is getting trained this summer so that she can teach some of the high school courses as well, so that they'll be able to go back and forth and teach each other's stuff, and we can, work with the schedule that way. They're taking the minibus, and I believe it is full, so I'm not sure exactly how many students, but they're going on Friday to Student Showcase up in Boston. It's at the New Balance track, and they're getting involved in those kinds of things now too. So that's really great. Having Ali Favaza be a part of this, it's like she is making sure that they take part in every opportunity that they have. I just chased Drew out on his way out because Drew and Nina Goodick from Anne Margaret Ferrante's office helped us get the Mass Cultural Council grant, which was $5,000, which doesn't seem like a lot. But Mike Montgomery and the theater students are putting together a theatrical technical workshop where they can build their sets, they can build their props. We have an 8th grade teacher taking students in there right now working on building a car. And it's also available for use for the Project Lead the Way classes as well. And then we just got an ST Math grant. That is our supplemental program to supplement iReady in the elementary school. It is, ST stands for spatial temporal, so it is completely visual. There is no language attached at all. The research says that students who use this with the amount of minutes that they ask for performed 15% better on the MCAS results. But that grant is for the next 3 years. We do have to pay a participation fee each year, but with the PD and the difference in the participation fee, it should be worth approximately $15,000 over the 3 years. And then in terms of direct support for AI implementation and for technology, we have a commitment from an anonymous donor for $100,000. We just are working with the Ed Foundation right now and wrote the letter for him to commit to this funding, and we've actually stretched it to 5 years because he committed the $100,000 for, we could either do 4 or 5 years. So we'll be implementing Conmigo from 6 through 12. All staff will be able to use that as an AI tool, and every student will have a login to Conmigo where it's kind of like a Google Classroom where they learn to use AI tools. It doesn't let them go out and search for the stuff that's not going to be reliable. And that is vetted. It's Khan Academy that puts it out, so we know it's really educational based and it's a good product. And they have offered up Crunch Labs Build Boxes, which is Mark Rober. Mark Rober, if you've never seen him, go watch him on YouTube. He is amazing. He's from MIT, and then he does all these videos about science and hands-on science. So they put together a box. We are going to have every fifth grade student for the next 5 years will once a month get a build box, each individually, and in their science in the fifth grade classrooms and in their technology class with Larissa de Benedette, they will be able to build this hands-on STEM engineering tool and take that home with them. So that's what that money will fund.
So you're looking at $32,000 of competitive grants right here, just on one page, and a $100,000 donation. All of this work, along with the curriculum review cycle, the budget, the hard work of the leadership and the teachers doing training and implementation, inarguably puts our students in this small school district right at the edge of where all of our large school districts and competitive school districts are, from an engineering standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, hopefully continuing with the social emotional supports. When I got here 3 years ago, I heard a lot about early literacy. We have dug in hard around early literacy and training and resources, and we're hoping to see the fruits of those labors when we start talking about data reports next year with you. We have an algebra for all concept. We have physics for all at the freshman level. We've made some massive, massive adjustments. So I want to pause and sort of reflect on that work. So when we talk about the value added and the competitive nature of public education, there's evidence out there that we're right there. And, the appropriated budget is important, but the fact that we continue to chase competitive grants as well as appropriated grants, and then I continue to say the philanthropy in this community is second to none compared to anywhere I've lived and worked. There is massive support for our students, and so I thank everybody who's done this work. Thank Jody for leading the work, but it's impressive to see all of the add-ons quickly add up in a successful way quickly. That's it for you. Questions for Jody before she leaves the table?
No.
Sorry. A comment. Amy mentioned before how she liked this format. I agree. I like it a lot. I like the highlights. And one thing I'd like to see kind of added to it is with the curriculum review, but also the highlights as well, is kind of that 3 to 5 year plan, sort of where we were, where we are right now, and what you see in the next 3 to 5 years, kind of that full picture. Because I know you guys have it in your head where all that's at, but sometimes with all the information we're presented, it gets sort of lost, the full scope of it all. So to have that presented with all of this, I think would be really, really great.
So we have a leadership team meeting tomorrow, and one of the agenda items is update of the strategy for district improvement. And we were talking about how all of these moving parts are going to require us as a leadership team between now and your first meeting in August to really take a hard look at our strategy and update those intended outcomes and all of those action items. So my hope is that in August, when we present the updated one for you to vote on, you'll see sort of the iterative nature of our strategy, and you'll see some of this documented in there. That's the hope. Yeah.
I'm still processing the fact that there are anonymous donors in the community who have come forward with an offer of this size. That's quite a lot of money, and I think it's lovely that people want to be anonymous. I think it's also something, though, that really ought to be celebrated. And as we think about advocacy and celebrations and communications, I just think about the power of a community that supports schools like this. And literally, it's one corner of one little slide in a school committee presentation. It's an enormous gift. And it's an enormous statement about the confidence that people out there have in this school system. And it's such an affirmation of the work that teachers do. It's an affirmation of leadership. It's an affirmation of this direction of providing more and better instruction and opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math, perhaps in this case, particularly technology. And it kind of blows me away to see a contribution of that magnitude just kind of here in the corner. It took me a minute to process.
I can share I can share just a little bit more about it. It has been a 6 to 7 month process to get where we are at, and the Ed Foundation actually has never accepted a donation this large. So they reached out to Gloucester and worked with Gloucester of how do we do something that is actually the money is directed and targeted for a specific thing. But this individual and his wife, they do not have children. They do not have children in the system. They do live in Rockport, but also live closer to Boston. One of them grew up in Gloucester, so we've cultivated a relationship since November, and they have been in to meet with me. They have been in to meet with Mark and with Monty Hitchler from the tech department. And we've been talking, and it's taken this long to get the paperwork in play. So I think once the agreement is signed, that I would think the Ed Foundation and we as well can celebrate this more and put
We're
it
going
put
to
it out
celebrate
there
it everywhere we can, and
as soon as it's
try
signed.
to preserve anonymity. That's the short
Yeah,
version of this,
and-
as publicly as we can in an anonymous way.
I think I take away from this that we needed to call another school system in order to understand how to accept a grant this large. That's sort of an aha for us. And to realize that we have people moving into the community. We hear so much about the cost of housing and people who aren't able to afford housing and how hard it is to live in Rockport. And here's an example of people who I guess could afford to live in Rockport and came to live in this lovely community and love us and support us. And what a lovely thing for students. What a powerful vote of support from these folks. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Principal Rose, you're next.
Hi.
Congratulations, Kathy. Okay, so I'm going to do a highlight. We did this last year on the professional development for the year. And I think just to go back to everything that's been talked about already tonight with, as you can see, all the curriculum and strategic initiatives and the SDI that we've talked about, everything should be, if we're doing our jobs right, directly related to the professional development that we're providing to staff. And I think it's really important to note that even with all the changes this year, and there have been a lot of talks, as Jody mentioned, about transition and changes and, you know, budget and negotiations, we haven't lost sight of also trying to, not just trying, but actually providing high quality educational experiences for our educators, because our teachers really are the biggest and best resource that we can give to students. And if they feel inspired and empowered and motivated and excited, then they're more apt to give those experiences back to their students. So just to highlight quickly the process that we go through with professional development, and it's specifically over the past couple of years since Mark has taken the lead as superintendent, and I have taken on the new role that includes professional development, which I really enjoy. And then working with Jody this year as the Director of Teaching and Learning has really brought it to a new level of being able to really integrate it into the bi-monthly coordinator meetings and really make this process not just about planning for 5 professional development isolated experiences a year, but making them feel cohesive, making them feel like they belong, and making them feel like we're getting the staff to a place that they feel better, you know, at the end of the year than they did at the beginning. So the process is really about evolving. So you'll notice that the structure actually looks very similar to last year, and that's purposeful. It's not that it was just rolled over. It's that we want the continuity. We don't want the staff to feel like we're changing the initiative or the plan every single year. The 3 highlighted areas of inclusive practices, literacy for all, and equity mindset continue to be at the forefront of everything that we do, and all of the professional development has been based around the SDI this year. So we've implemented the plan this year, and then we really are already looking, which I'll highlight in the next slide, on the outcomes and the next steps. So as we go along, every single PD experience that we've had, we have had feedback surveys from the staff, which I joke with them, we actually do read through. We take that feedback, we don't just ignore it, and hopefully they see that we've been able to tweak things as we go along to make them better and better over the past years. And we just wrapped up the professional development committee this past Monday, and have a plan really almost ready to go, which I'll be rolling out to the district leadership team before the end of the year, that I think is really reflective of the work of the teachers and what they feel has been really meaningful as part of these experiences this year and last. So Mark, if you go to the next slide, I'll just kind of walk you through the PD plan that we have this year. This is on our website. This is accessible to anybody. Again, the overarching themes: developing an equity mindset, inclusive practices, and literacy for all. If you scroll down, Mark, these are just resources for our teachers, a little bit more about the vision. But the links, which are always live and updated, show every agenda that we've had throughout this year. You can actually also look back to last year's and see how they've evolved. And next year, I'll show you a little bit of the work the committee's done for next year, which I found really impressive, because the committee was, Amy Huber was on the committee, as well as Jody, I think really thoughtful about taking what went really well this year, highlighting that, celebrating it, we want more of it, and taking their voice and really making that to be a productive committee. So you'll notice we have the links to the major PD themes above, and then Mark just scrolled down to sort of the in-house offerings that happen throughout the year. So not everything we do can fit into those, 5 or 6 PD afternoons. There's a lot that happens through getting coverage and subs and after school, that are all directly related to our overarching goals that are included in this PD plan. So Mark, if you scroll up just to the big ones, I wanted to just highlight 2 of them. I know the school committee, you can look through all of them that we've done, but I think 2 from the feedback surveys that came out as sort of winners that I think are important to highlight are the full day PD. If you look on if you click on the 10:15 session, you'll notice that with all of these, there's some differentiation between grades, elementary, middle, and high, but also hopefully some consistencies on the things that we're doing across grades. Both schools were able to do a project adventure PD, which people found to be very meaningful and helpful, not just because it was fun and it brought us together, but it gave a lot of really valuable tools that we can use in the classroom. And I think that's always something that we hear from teachers after every PD. How can we actually use what we learned and use it tomorrow? How does this change anything that we do? And I think by putting people in somewhat risky situations or uncomfortable situations, there was a lot of really good things that came from that, because, as we've talked about, education for educators is natural a lot of the time. We're in it because we were good at school or we felt comfortable, learning for the most part. And sometimes when we're put in experiences like physical experiences where you have to, try something new or run or build a bridge together, or we're very uncomfortable, and you notice people who really shine in the classroom being uncomfortable in those moments, having to push through those times and think about how do our students feel when we're pushing them in different ways, and how can we make them feel like they can do hard things in our classes. And so those experiences not only help to bring us together and create camaraderie amongst the staff, but also I think the next day and then the next day I would see teachers doing things and trying things with the kids that they would have never tried before. So that was something that we were able to build in around some of the other practical things, like looking at the WIN workshop and really applying the strategies and skills that we need. But I think that was something that we embarked on. It's a bigger scale PD that we planned, and it went really, really well. The other one I wanted to highlight was the February 4th. This was our first try at almost like an ed camp that at some point maybe we could open up to other districts to do, and I was really proud. I think we all as a district leadership team were really proud of the teacher-led sessions that became available. So Mark, if you click on the sessions, I think it's that one. Nope, not that one. Sorry. Maybe this one. Nope. There's the one. Click back on the main form. Is it the first one? Nope. It must be that. It must be that one if you just scroll down. Yeah, the one you're on. Just scroll down. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You can see all the. Sorry. I haven't looked at the form in a little while, but you can see all the offerings that we were able to provide, and they were all around. If you keep scrolling around the general theme of inclusive practices and creating an equity mindset. So there were things about dealing with difficult students, things about dyslexia and managing students who maybe don't think and process the way that everybody does. One size doesn't fit all, UDL, navigating difficult conversations, problem solving in action. You can teach controversial topics, more tech tools, NEAS, which we're going to talk about later in this presentation, supporting anxious students. So you can read through, but there were such a wide variety that the biggest feedback from this session was we could only pick 2, and there were so many good ones that we could do this over and over again. And I think it's, worth highlighting and celebrating, because it's a lot of work that teachers came out, almost 20 offerings that we had for such a small district, and people really came out in a big way. They did an amazing job offering the sessions. The feedback was phenomenal. And I think probably the best part about it is because it was all in-house, even several weeks later, people are collaborating who maybe wouldn't collaborate. A high school teacher who was in an elementary session or a middle school session going down to a classroom and saying, I tried that and it really worked and it was awesome. And again, connecting people, because in education we can often make our work harder. We work in silos. We're all trying to do the same thing, but we don't have a lot of time sometimes together. So this was a huge success and something that came out in the feedback surveys and in the professional development committee about things we want to do again.
I think it's important to recognize that in organizations there's a really tough balancing act when you're providing professional development in any industry between bringing in the outside experts and then leveraging the experts within the organization. Yeah. And it's not just a financial win, right? We don't do it for the financial savings. We do it to recognize that regardless of what organization and industry you're in, there are some seriously skilled players, hopefully, if you're a successful organization. And to leverage that and to build capacity in-house to say, listen, we've got educators who can come up with 20 legit sessions tied to our strategy for district improvement to help move our organization forward. And by the way, it's a way to recognize our talented staff, and then all of a sudden we see them shine in a different light, and Amy presents something, and then 5 teachers want to go talk to Amy 3 different times about that presentation. We see it getting paid forward. And really proud of that day. I mean, proud of all of the PD this year, but that's a very cool day that should be repetitive. Mm-hmm. And we could leverage partnerships with other districts and try to have them come in and either do it as a shared model or have them come participate and learn from our teachers or collaboratively with our teachers. So I think there's a lot of growth in this model.
Yeah. And you'll see as I go through sort of the assessment strategies and the revision strategies that come from this year's plan, we can just quickly look. I know you can look through them in more detail, but we did, as I said, a feedback survey after every single session that we did. I was going to torture you and attach some of them because some of the feedback is really great, but I decided to just save you a little bit and try to highlight some of the quotes that I think were the most salient themes and overarching highlights and themes. The teacher-led, as I said, by far won by all accounts because I think people really almost not doubted, but sort of was like, oh, there's so many sessions. What do I pick? How is this going to be? Is this going to be useful? Is it going to be valuable? And again, could have stayed for another hour or 2 or 3 just to continue talking about what they learned. So learning from one another, the project-based, again, putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations and helping each other resolve issues, becoming our best assets amongst each other and our team, I think is vital. And it's something we're going to be building into next year, which I'll show you in a minute. Hands-on, collaborative, relevant, high expectations language, all the things that we have talked about in terms of an SDI and a vision for our students are things I think we owe our staff to model to them through the PD experiences that we create. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the feedback and then just the revise. Sorry, the last link is the revision process. And this looks a little bit messy, but I really thought it was important to share with you because it shows you all the process and how detailed and I think collaborative, and Amy's behind me. She was on the committee as a teacher, obviously Jody as well. But I think this felt like a very collaborative process, particularly this year with the committee in place. So if you scroll down, Mark, to the messiest part of the document, my favorite part, the highlights. So what we did as a committee was really do a brain dump between, and there was RTA staff, administrators, and there was a really good representation of RTA staff. There were classroom teachers, there were specialists, there was a nurse. So there were people that sometimes get elementary teachers who get left out of the traditional PD experiences that we create. How can we fit them in? The other amazing thing we have from the new contract that's coming out with the support staff is that we'll have paraprofessionals at every single professional development experience that we have next year, which we haven't had before. We feel is so important to make sure they're getting the same valuable experiences. And if we can integrate them right into what the teachers need, perfect. If there are certain things that are much more related to teachers and we can give them customized and personalized training for their areas, then we tried to do that as well. So we brain dumped everything. We started at the top with the what do we absolutely have to have, and this is where Anne-Marie, as the director of student services, Jody and I really kind of came to the table. There are certain things we just are mandated to do. We have to get done. They have to be in the plan. Then we went to the like to have, and this is where I just started taking notes. Teachers started talking, the committee started talking about the things that we really would like to build into this plan. So my weird highlighting system is to show you that all the yellows are included in our proposed plan, and all the greens are included in different ways. So if you scroll up to the top now, Mark, you can see we have 5 or 6, days to organize all these PD experiences. So the yellows have been included in one of those 5 or 6, sessions that we have. We couldn't fit everything, but our workaround with the greens is that we have committed as a committee to really make the best use of those Tuesday afternoon meeting times. So we have contracted 3 afternoons a month where we have faculty meetings, department meetings, or professional development time. And maybe some of you may know faculty meetings can be very productive and important, and they are vital times for us to get together, but sometimes, historically speaking, they can become a laundry list of things that we need to do, upcoming dates. We talked about that a lot in the committee about how, I do weekly emails to staff. We communicate a lot. We can put things in writing if we don't need to have an entire meeting about that. There's so many things we could be reinforcing about our plans routinely every month as part of those meetings. Working with coordinators under the new structure to build them into department meetings, and obviously using the PD afternoons. So we took all those green highlights of things that we really want to be able to include but maybe can't include in those 5 or 6 days, and committed to putting those into the afternoon meetings. Again, showing a commitment that we want to make this plan something we live, breathe, our teachers know about, and the middle high school staff know that at almost every meeting I have, I say, I want you all to get 100. And the SDI, we all have a goal of knowing 100% of our teachers are going to know and be able to use inclusive practices in their classrooms. So I'll have them take a test every time that I want them to get 100 on, because I want them to be able to show and say, this is what I do and I'm really proud, and this is what this means, and this is how it's related back to the plan. So again, we have some work to do to actually make that look pretty and prepared for opening days and put into a plan. But again, that was the very thoughtful work by a group of people who came together on several occasions throughout this year to create. So I don't know if people have questions.
So before
about
you
that.
shift to the other topic,
Yeah.
I think absolutely take a breath, and can we, if you want to respond to the professional development work, that'd be great.
This is awesome. Thank you. I don't remember, this is, I don't know, like my 7th year or something. I don't remember getting this much detail about professional development. I know we've talked about themes and whatever, but I really appreciate seeing this much detail and seeing all the work that goes into this. And it also kind of on our theme of communication to the community, to the parents, to the student, whatever. I just can't get over the first annual STAY conference and all these sessions. I'm like, oh my gosh, compassion and Buddhism with Chris Lonsby in the math classroom. I want to do that. I'm so jealous. So I wonder, if there's ways, I know it's on the website and you can dig through the website and look at the PD plan and whatever, but no, besides us, people are probably not going to see this. I think this would be a great, and I say this as someone who's not going to write this article, but it would, or I could. This is something that I just think we should celebrate and people should know about. This is awesome when I look at these different perseverance perseverance through juggling. Like, I just
You'd be
think
surprised. You can learn a lot about watching someone get frustrated trying to juggle, and
I
a
was in
lot about
juggling
their
club
their
briefly.
tolerance. Yeah.
It's no joke. Juggling club is no joke. So I just wonder if there's a way to just get, to just celebrate this more and to let people know, like, these are the things our teachers and staff are doing, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
I
and thank
agree.
you for all your work organizing it, committee and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
So.
great.
You know, Amy said it early on, the teachers and the sports staff are our greatest resource. You know, we heard from Jody about the money allocated and the hard work we have going into the curriculum review cycle and the stuff. But if you don't have the pros in the room, doesn't matter what the stuff looks like. So, we continue to invest in our people. We continue to train to the extent that we can train. And many of them go out on their own, spend their own money or district appropriate money on grad courses, take summer work, or come in voluntarily before school, after school, and in the summer. Because they just feel it's the right thing to do for the kids to move us forward. So, it does really take a village, and when you pull all of this work together in a night like tonight, you can sort of see it.
And it's a contagious effect. When they're excited, then I'm excited, the kids are excited, everyone's excited. So I think it's really meaningful work, and I just appreciate so much the teachers who have put it together over the years. But
So we also have compliance in the world.
wait,
Um,
wait,
Wait,
thank you, Amy,
no,
one-
wait, I'm
sorry.
Let's not move to that yet.
Well, just wait 1 second, because I think about where we start with SDI and how dry it can be to listen to some of the presentations. And then I think you get to the end and you hear about what that generates. Just the simple act of having a committee of people work on PD, right? There's this old saying, I hope I die in a faculty meeting because the distance between boredom and death will be so short, right? And so when you stop having gatherings like that and you start creating gatherings where people had some say about what happens, it's so much better. But it's not just better, it's also tied back to where you say we're supposed to go. And so that's what's really great when you can do the adventure activity and it's tied to the culture and the climate you're trying to create. And it's color coded too. It's very impressive to see. It's not boring to listen to either.
Oh, good.
It's great. So I appreciate that.
I can't really, guarantee the next slides will be as fascinating and fun, but
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. So I actually came off. I've been at Project Adventure at Moraine Farm all day today. So I'm coming off of a Project Adventure day myself. Is this something that the students ever get to experience in Rockport?
So all the 7th graders go to Project Adventure every single year. So they all get that experience, and it is something that since we've had the professional development, another great thing. And we do it through health classes and through PE, but some of the teachers, particularly in the middle school, because we have advisory built into the middle school, came to me almost right after and were like, would you be able to fund, and when by fund I mean like, do you have $100 to give us, little pulley balls and, little things. So we stocked a little cart, and they've been doing a lot within advisories in the middle school, but even the high school teachers have been incorporating them routinely into their classrooms. So we've been doing more and more with it. If you look on the, we don't have to go back to it, but if you look on the opening day schedules for this coming year, the committee had said, we really want to start off the year with something like that. Not all day, we have a million things that we need to do, but if there was an hour and a half of something like that, unite us, connect us, and remind us of the vision, we could maybe be, one, energized, but two, think about things we could do in our classrooms that are not going to totally take away from, the standards and the curriculum we need to cover, but small ways to engage students daily. So we don't have something beyond the 7th grade where they do it every day that's like tied into the curriculum every year, but I think it's something that we hope to culturally ingrain into some of the experiences that we're going to be doing.
And Jody just waved her fingers at me. 4th grade
Fourth grade does
goes
too.
in the fall.
7th grade goes in the spring.
Right.
Perfect.
So our teachers were left out, quite honestly. So there's a good opportunity to get the educators in the
Yeah,
loop
they
too.
do 2 full days in 7th grade, and then
Just
they
one
do
in
one. Yeah, it's really cool.
Good. So Amy's also here to talk to us because we do have a NEASC accreditation process sort of on the horizon. talking about high-performing high schools and portrait of a graduate and vision of the future for us. So Amy's going to sort of step us through. I know she's been involved in some meetings and Zoom sessions with NEASC. So she's just going to kind of give us a quick overview of what that looks like. Some of us might have been here the last time, and some of us were definitely not here the last time. So,
So the last time we were accredited was 2013, believe it or not. It's supposed to be a every 10-year process, but because of COVID, they kept pushing things back. And then we actually requested to be pushed back after we merged into a middle high school last year, because we were scheduled to be on the docket in 2026. And given all the changes that were happening, we were prepared to do 9 through 12, not as prepared to do 6 through 12. So they granted us that extension. So I just wanted to run through, we're in the preliminary stages of it. I tried to give some detail, but not too much detail to bore you through the process, some resources. There's some links about what NEASC is that you're certainly welcome to go through. But I'll just guide you through the quick overview and answer any questions tonight. It's going to be a longer process. I'll go through the timeline with you, so we'll have more chances to discuss. I think one of the major things to highlight is that in the meetings that we've had, and I had the opportunity to do be on a 2-year committee reviewing another school 2 years ago at Newburyport, and I'm going back in September to do their big report. So that was a great experience, just to be a writer and be somebody who is evaluating, and to really see firsthand that when I've been in these meetings, they are accurate when they say they have totally changed their style. So back in 2013, as the man who I had a 3-hour meeting on Friday about our visit particularly, and he had said, if you did this back in 2013, you probably remember you had to basically write a doctoral dissertation to do this. It was more punitive in nature. If you had met 50% of a goal and you were supposed to meet 100 by the time they came back and you had only gotten to 75, they would give you a slap on the wrist. Whereas now they would celebrate, wow, you grew 25%. So a lot of the things they're preaching that we should be doing with our students, with our teachers, they're modeling through their new process. So it's an ongoing partnership and it's an ongoing reflection process. It's not as much as like trying to create things that we don't do to prove that we're okay. It's actually about highlighting and celebrating the things we are doing, having people come in, give us some good feedback, applaud and praise a lot of the things we're doing right, give us 1 or 2 things to focus on, and then tracking that, and then hopefully growing over time. So if you go to the next slide, I wanted to just make sure you all know as the committee what our timeline is. So I had our first major meeting, like I said, on Friday. It was a 3-hour meeting. We got assigned a liaison, set up a visit for the fall, which is just a very informal visit where they'll come and meet with me. They'll come to a faculty meeting and share with the faculty what it's about and what we're going to be doing. We will be posting a stipend for 2 steering committee members that will help lead the ship. Before, when we went through this process, we had almost the entire faculty was members of some sort of committee. And after talking with Mark and Jody and, being in this process now, they're taking more of a less is more approach. You can have leaders to help guide the process, but if I embed it into our faculty meetings, if I embed it into our growth plans, if I, can share things with staff and get feedback throughout, perfect. We don't necessarily need to create all this extra work just to prove that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is great. So in the big heavy lift for next year will be in writing our assessment and our self-reflection. And basically, NEASC, I think it might be on the next slide, but I'll wait 1 second to go there. They have, 5 big pillars that they want you to meet. So we'll have to assess where are we at within those things. We write that up. And then that guides the first visit. When they come and visit us in November 16th through 18th, 2026, so not this fall, but the next fall, they'll have a team of 8 people come. We put them up in a hotel. We host them. So we have to plan for that budget-wise. And they walk around for 2 days, 3 days, and they basically look at our self-assessment and try to validate with teachers, staff, is this actually what's really happening here? Does this feel accurate to you? Again, when I did this at Newburyport 2 years ago now, it was a great experience. It was awesome to talk to the kids. They have committees of parents that come in, they have teachers, and you really just to get to say, oh, tell me about this. This seems like something you're doing really well. This feels like something you need to work on. And then you write up a report. And then we have 2 years to take their report and implement hopefully areas that we want to work on. And then they come back for their full accreditation visit in September 24th through 27th, 2028. So I think, Mark, on the next slide is where, oh no, maybe I didn't put it in there. There were more slides than that, I think. But that's okay. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. I can send them to you. So there are basically 5 things that you're looking at. Maybe if you click on that, there might have been one more, that we have to go through and basically share. And I think the good news for us when I've been going through all this is we have done so much work recently that when we went through this in 2013, I was not the principal, but I was an employee at the school. And I do remember trying to create a lot of things while we went. So we don't have a core value. We have to create that. We don't have a rubric to measure that. We have to create that. We don't have curriculum maps, so we have to create those. We don't have all these things. I really feel like as part of this process, our main goal is going to really be able to celebrate all the things that we do have in place, and we have a lot. And then some of the things that we still need to work on, the major one in my mind is the vision of the graduate, which we already knew we have to work on. And we've been really waiting to do that so that it's not an isolated high school thing, it's a district thing. What is the vision of a Rockport High School graduate starting in preschool and going all the way through senior year? So that's something we already know as a district leadership team we have to commit to. But beyond that, I feel like we're doing so many things well that it will give us a chance to highlight those. And then also, any areas that we need support around, have a committee of people come in to offer us that kind of support. So today I just wanted to make sure you all knew that we're going to be going through this process again, let you know what it is, a brief overview of the timeline, and then I'm happy to come back in. We have scheduled for November 4th our first liaison who's going to be coming in again to give me more information about the process. This is my first time as a principal going through it, so we'll be learning together, and I'm happy to come back and give updates along the way, but I'll take general questions if anybody has them.
I mean, the timeline's long. You know, you look at it, you talk about that major visit coming in 2028.
Yeah.
It just feels far away and long, but I
Yeah.
think the work in totality is going to be interesting for you to be in connection with them and just to come back every so often to the school committee and give the community an update to say, okay, this is the step we're in now.
Yeah.
This is what we've learned so far. We're all towards, gaining another 10 years of accreditation
Yeah.
for the high school.
Yeah, but what's great is this is what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So now it is not this rush and stress, and
Right.
it's just showing off. Well,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more than showing
Well,
off.
I could regret saying this, and I'm on camera, so I guess, you can call me on it. But I did say to Jody and Mark after the visit, I said, I dare say this could be a little bit fun in the sense that we don't often get to highlight and showcase so many of the good things that we are doing. And we've done so many things over the last couple of years that are on our website that we have tried to promote. We don't always get, the avenue to do that. So I know from being on my visit, it was awesome to have 8 people sit around a table with faculty and say, wow, you guys have done this. This is amazing. Some of the things they had done at Newburyport. And I think our faculty will feel that same energy, I hope, because they are doing great things. And oftentimes it feels like, does anybody notice that we're doing these things? So, there'll be a lot of work involved, but I think it's good work.
I think in this era of state accountability systems, all of the testing and all the feedback that we get from state and federal levels and rankings and sortings and what color level are you at, it's really a credit to this system that we still participate in the accreditation process, right? That we care enough about our professional practice to go through this process. It's a lot of work. And it's excellent work, right? And to get other people to come in and give feedback is really, it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
And feedback helps all of us. So I think that's what I'm excited about. We try to give that to the teachers. We give it to each other, but having somebody from the outside come in and say, wow, this is like almost a flagship. This is amazing. But, this is where you're struggling, but we have a lot of people who do this well, and connecting you with resources. I think we're all excited to get better and get some feedback in that area. So that's all I have. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Like everyone's brains aren't full enough, right? Let's talk numbers.
we're not in the right folder, am I?
Doesn't look it.
Here we go. So,
Number 11.
I know. Which, we're going to start with
11 or-
overview?
You can do either one.
Okay.
So this is just our general overview, and it's just a snapshot by department as a whole. As you can see, between the town's appropriation and our additional resources of fees, grants, school choice circuit breaker, number was 16.9 million, 97 million. And right now we're running about 4,200 over that. Of course, we do have reserves, and that's where it will come from. Basically, the major one is our operations and maintenance department. We have the cost of fuel, we have the cost of electricity, we have projects that we didn't plan on, and that's where the bulk of that has come. Our special ed student services is actually doing very well. And at the elementary school level, it's just shifting of employees, and as you'll see, you could probably go to the other
Yep.
spreadsheet where it's a little more in depth. Great, thank you. The main areas that I would say we're doing just as fine as last quarter. I'm not concerned in the direction that it's going. I would say since the last quarter, we've had quite a few long-term absences that, of course, you can't budget for that. That has to be paid because a lot of these key positions need to have replacements while these people are out. So there's that cost. The other main cost is our unanticipated capital expenses. We went over this last quarter. For example, additional flooring as we were moving classrooms around, the original playground, the wear and tear on that equipment and covering that, the alarm system in the gym, irrigation issues, our music area with our leaks, and the elementary door issue. Since the last quarter, we've also now you're doing weatherproofing, and we've had cracks on our serious cracks, which have been over time, but then became imperative that we fix them on our public tennis courts. That cost is being covered by the town and ourselves. So, but that is another cost. So that's why you see that area increasing as well. So I think importantly is why when you look at our reserve, which is if you scroll down a bit, it's a good number. I'm sure for the public, they're like, well, why is that number so high? Why aren't you using it in your budget build? Well, because of just the things I've explained. If you don't have that source, where does that money come from? Are you going to stop a program mid-year? Are you going to lay someone off mid-year? So this is where this comes in. The concern is, as we've stated in previous quarters, is we are a shrinking district and we have right-sized the district. So with school choice, for example, you're not going to have as many openings if you have less teachers per grade. And that isn't the point. School choice isn't in place for you to add staff. It's to complete a classroom that may have one or two openings. Well, then why not? That class is going to run. That grade is going to run. Whether that class has 18 kids or 20 kids. So you might as well have two openings, for example, in that grade. But with the right sizing of the district, you're going to have less opportunity to have higher, so these numbers are going to shrink. Another factor in school choice that we need to look at down in the future, it's going to be a smaller and smaller number. And not just because of enrollment and space of staffing. Also, you have to take into consideration that you may have a student who is very high need. That is a school choice. And we receive, say, $50,000 from that district to cover all the needs of that child. And that's wonderful. And we do whatever we have to do, and that child completes our program and graduates, and that's wonderful. The replacement child that comes in maybe in kindergarten or 6th grade may be a child that doesn't need any services. So now you're only receiving $5,000. And that's fine, because that spot is available. But now you're not receiving $45,000. And so these numbers, as these high need children graduate, you may not have the replacement at the same level. So this number will shrink over time. And our circuit breaker number, which is an assistance from the state for very high need children, that fluctuates all the time, depending on how many of your population is high need. Also, you're at the mercy of the state actually keeping their word and fully funding what they promised. So those numbers, that's why it's so important to not just draw that number down just for the sake of drawing it down.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about the variables, I think that we've talked about those a lot in the past couple of years through the budget cycle. So the variables, right now, what's important is that we continue to control what we can control as a school district. And, we heard from the representative tonight about the work they're trying to do. We've heard a lot tonight about philanthropy and grant funding. So I think all of that in combination with the appropriated budget allows us to keep this reserve number healthy, so that when we get to the point where we have right-sized the district, or there's a revenue shortfall for whatever reason, these reserves are here for a purpose. So I think every year we have to have a healthy conversation about what's that number going to look like. How many years have we been able to get legs, so to speak, right? I think, Superintendent Lebo used to talk about the override getting legs when I met him, and he would talk a lot about how many years and how far you can carry that on. And so I think we've done a good job doing that work, and this number remaining here, close to the original number, is a really good thing for us. So I think that's sort of, in conclusion, that's sort of our takeaway over time. And we'll come back with Q4, but the budget is in a healthy situation, and the budget build for next year makes us feel really proud of the work that we were able to present tonight and move the district forward. So
Yes, I would agree with that.
I think that's what we have. Any thoughts on it? Good? All right.
I'm not a math teacher, but I love that right-hand column that says percent spent, right? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but after 3 quarters, we would expect, if we're on track, that we've spent about 75%, right? So I think that right-hand column is really very interesting. You can see where we're ahead or where we're behind. And obviously, there's some money that gets spent all at once, right? So you use 100% at the whatever it is, but I just think that column is really helpful for me as a school committee member, because that's really the one that makes me think, oh, okay, that those numbers sort of track with Q3. So for the benefit of anybody watching at home, if you can, when you dig in and you find this document, look at the right hand.
I think another
column.
final point about a healthy reserve is after we've fully right-sized the district to the district leadership team's satisfaction of what we can do, then if anything's over, we will be dipping into this reserve,
To support the budget.
to support the budget. And the other thing that I think was interesting that Mr. Tarr, and I don't blame him, he couldn't give an answer, as we all know, what's going to happen with federal funding. So in our budget build, we've committed a significant amount of money.
Almost $450,000.
And I'll be honest, those grants, that's all federal money. So what happens if next year that money doesn't materialize? This is where it comes from. We have great support from the town and our taxpayers by creating a special ed reserve fund. That helps. That's more targeted for obviously a very certain group of cost for us. And it's also mainly if unexpected, you need additional paras. You have a high needs student that needs to be placed outside the district. And we're building a budget in the fall to guess for a year and a half from now who's going to be here. And that's great why we have those funds. And I have to give credit that that's probably another reason why this number is so high. If it wasn't for that fund, you would see a much lower number. But important what's going to happen with the federal money, especially because our grant offset is all federal.
And we're keeping our eye on that closely. We
Yeah.
talked about that tonight, but the superintendent's organization, MASS, has a really, really robust advocacy platform right now with the legislators to try to really keep a close watch on what's happening with federal changes. It's not predictable. And so, we're sort of in a wait and see model. And I would suspect things could shift over the summer, positively or negatively, and then
Yes.
we'll adjust over
And
time.
I'm
so.
meeting with MASBO,
Yep.
which is our group, Mass School Business Officials, and we're meeting all next week.
Yep.
And part of it is the state will be there, and we'll be giving Jay Sullivan, who's an assistant deputy commissioner, he's there, he's actually our treasurer. He'll be there all week, and as he gets any information, he'll let us know. And they're very good about that. But they don't know either.
Yep.
They're honestly.
I would anticipate it probably not in the June meeting, but probably in that first August meeting, really coming together and being able to give you some kind of
before we
clear
have
update.
actual answers.
Yep. All right, good.
Can I ask a question about the
Yeah.
the unattended capital expenses?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the tennis courts, and we've talked about the playground in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious how does that relationship work with the town in terms of who's paying, how much is paying? Is it a 50-50 split usually?
No,
and the
not-
amount on here, is that amount on here
Yeah.
the school's portion that's already been agreed upon, or is some of the money going to be coming back
So
from the town for that?
So the schools portions get reflected in our budget. To answer the how question or the percentage, it's different every time, right? So the interesting conversation is that these are town facilities, no different than your library and your fire department and your police station, and we just happen to live and work in them. Live, that's how often we're here, we say live. So because of that, there's a give and take between the town administrator and I all the time. The Pigeon Cove tennis courts were redone 2 or 3 years ago now recently. The tennis courts behind the elementary school are basically at end of life already. So we've had long-term conversations about what's that going to look like, what kind of work can we do back there. But the short term, they were literally unsafe for our varsity players to play on or for community members to come on. That's how deep some of these cracks were. So Friends of Rockport Athletics, our budget, and the town have come together kind of as three-way partners to fund the quick and dirty repair of that. The roof project, we just voted for some borrowing at the most recent town meeting to cover that. So it's a little different every time.
Yeah.
We do have a 5-year capital plan, and it unfortunately is just as iterative as some of the other work we do, right? Based on, we didn't see the roof project coming,
Things come up
things come up
all the time. Right?
So we are trying to be as thoughtful as we can, and I think when Mitch and I have more and more conversations, we've talked about he and I really coming together with the DPW department and Kirk, our in-house people, to really have a much more robust conversation about the schools being part of the municipal conversation. That these are town buildings, and no different than you wouldn't ignore your house for 15 years or 20 years. We can't continue to do that with some of our infrastructure as well. We're not building any new schools in this community. We have the buildings we have, and we need to take care of them. But right now, it's really a blend of some appropriated budget,
Right.
some capital asks, and some nonprofit organizations in partnership with the town money.
So I guess to put you on the spot a little bit, and this might be sort of an unfair question, but I kind of feel like I need to ask. Does that process work for
Yeah.
the schools?
Yeah.
Is it working? Do you think it's fair?
I think it's working better and better every year. I mean, you had me coming in as a first-year person, and Mitch has been here a while, and
Is there anything the committee can do to help with that in terms of?
Not yet. I think
the select board.
I think what I anticipate doing is coming to the committee next year for the first time, probably with some longer-term plans for the grounds, right, and the facilities. What's going to happen when we replace the tennis court, if and when that happens? What are we going to do with the greenhouse, the trailer behind the office? There are some bigger conversations that we need to talk about. So I do think, as Mitch and I have those conversations about making some good physical upgrades and making it an appropriate space for the community. I mean, it's a community space so often after school and in the summer and in the mornings that we want to make sure it continues to be inviting. So right now it's working well, and I think Mitch and I keep having conversations, but ultimately I do feel like next year I'll be coming to you with some more grandiose hopes and dreams for what it could look like in the future.
I think a perfect example, if I could give you one, that you wouldn't see on this list is, years ago, if we needed to pave part of our, the circle, it actually was a capital project that we had to go out to bid and we had to get our own company. Our parking lots took a hit this winter and had a lot of wear and tear, chunks of pavement actually coming up. Over April vacation, DPW was up there and patched everything for us. That would have cost the school budget thousands of dollars, and they just stepped right up and came up. And that's not reflected here, but they should have full credit for coming in and helping and doing that for us. It's a major cost savings to
Town mechanics,
to
town
us.
electricians,
Yes.
town, we've got skilled laborers, and that I think long term that partnership between the school and the municipality is going to be an important move that we make in the community.
I think you'll see more and more sharing of this, and so $92,000 in the big scheme of the almost $17 million budget doesn't seem a lot, but when you're trying to preserve your reserve, it is a lot. But when you see what we did, like for example, the town through capital outlay paid for all our cafeteria tables.
Right.
That's great, but while we were doing that, there was an opportunity to get high top tables in a senior area off the lobby. Well, that's something that needed to be taken advantage of in the moment. That was obviously not budgeted for. So that's the example of that. When you're doing the carpet, we had carpet replacement in the elementary, we had certain amount of rooms. Well, as you rearrange and come up with new programs and you need a new space, well, you may need a new floor in that when you're setting up that classroom. Well, that wasn't part of the original plan, so now that's part of it. And then the example, the water and the music room, no one
Yep.
could plan on that, but it needed to be addressed right away, and we had the ability to make it happen immediately, where the town might not have it in that moment, where they're gonna help us with a whole roof. So, it's give and take, and I can't say enough. It's working very well.
I think it's working really well, but I have a piggyback question. I am always interested that it requires a voice vote of this committee to accept the donation of 2 books for the library. But it doesn't appear to require a voice vote of the committee to spend money from the reserve. That's fascinating, right? We don't come back as a committee and line item approvals for the reserve. And does this all come from Mass General Law? Does MGL say you must approve every donation, including
Yes.
library
Yes.
books,
Yes.
Curious George,
Any gift to the school.
a $7.99
Yep.
paperback, you must approve. But moving money
Yeah.
from
The reserves
reserve back
the reserves
to
is
pay
part
for
of the
roof.
it's part of
Well, no,
is-
our reserves are very specific, what they can be used for. So school choice is direct student services. So you're
Okay.
gonna see, you're not gonna see the maintenance line. Circuit breaker is for special ed student services specifically. So we don't actually move reserve in. It's kind of an indirect, and you hope you're under budget in other areas. And if the end, if you need to charge more of the direct student services to the reserve, or you need to charge additional tuition bill to circuit breaker, because you're required to actually use your circuit breaker money. It can't just sit
I
there.
equate
voted that on the end?
no
No, you don't have
I
to.
equate that to line item autonomy because it's part of the budget. It's baked into the budget when the town passes the override.
Okay, I don't object to it.
No.
I've just always wondered, every time we vote to accept
Yeah.
books,
I know.
It's just striking to me.
Yeah, Massachusetts has some
Okay.
uniquenesses to what we can and can't take.
We
in.
will do what we're told. Good, thank you.
So I know we have 2 items under school committee discussion.
Right, the first is a report from the Day on
Day
the
on the
Hill.
Give us a quick commercial. I know it's a long meeting, but I want to hear it.
Ms. DeLisi and I attended the Massachusetts Association of School Committee Day on the Hill activity. It was held in Boston. The first part was held at the UMass Club. We were on the 23rd floor, and I bet there was a really beautiful view out the window, but it was so foggy that we thought the windows were frosted at first. It was really very funny. We were in the clouds. And the second part was in the State House. And if you've attended this, you know that's where the students from all of the area vocational and technical schools provide food from their culinary programs. So that's really great. I think we were both very impressed to have the chair and the co-chair or the assistant chair of the Senate Education and the House Education committees come in and speak directly to all of us. They talked about pieces of legislation that they're particularly interested in. I found that to be pretty interested. And then Jason Frazier, who is a school committee member and also a teacher, interestingly. He's the chair of the MASC board. He kind of chaired the morning, and he spoke at length about the MASC, the bills that are under consideration that MASC is especially interested in advocating for. So I thought it was a great overview of the policy initiatives that we as school committee members are interested in and that they as legislators are interested in advancing as well. So I'm going to stop and let you talk a little bit.
Absolutely. It was a lot of information for me. I think for most people there going into it. So it was a really good opportunity to kind of hear about the work that was happening. And then hearing how a lot of it affects us, and some things that don't, like they were talking about different types of vocational schools or rural schools, and just a lot of things that I personally am not privy of. So it was a really great experience, and I found the financial literacy piece, which you brought up earlier in the meeting, super interesting, right? Because I guess I didn't really think about it too much. It's, it kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? Like, why wouldn't we teach financial literacy? Why wouldn't that be there?
We should.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was a good experience.
There are two, at least that I can see, really great opportunities that we have as school committee members to learn together. The first one is the conference that's held with the School Superintendents Association. That's in November on the Cape. It's grim and gray, and it feels like a long drive from the North Shore. It's not really. And this one, which is not a long haul, and I just thought the caliber of the information was excellent, and it was really a big aha to me to learn about the MASC delegate assembly process, the process they use on an annual basis to come to consensus over the legislative items that they are most interested in pushing forward. It's a powerful voice, I think, in educational policy in Massachusetts, and I would say that those legislators, all of them, were so complimentary of school committee members. Like, I don't know about you, but I walked out thinking, good for us that we are school committee members. They talked about how powerful our voices are, and just as they talk about school superintendent voices, how important it is to reach out and speak up and advocate if there's something that we really see. My takeaway was we should not hesitate to contact our local representatives. It's great to see them on our agenda. So it's a wonderful opportunity. The school system paid for our registration. I really appreciated that. I learned a ton. Yeah, really appreciated it.
And I will say that the 18 vocational schools that came and prepared our lunch, it was so impressive. I mean, it was like walking into a full-run fancy restaurant. Like, they were all in uniform. I mean, the different types of food, the flavors. I was just so impressed. The presentations, it really was. It was a great experience.
Yeah, including Essex, right? They were from.
Were they there?
Yeah, they were. So that's really fun to see students in that day. It's a great opportunity, I think, and there's people are working hard on behalf of Massachusetts school children.
I just wanted to say, I think that when you're talking about how those legislative priorities get, that whole process of how they kind of get decided on, when at the conference I got to go to like our regional meeting. I think we're region 1. I don't, and so there's ongoing regional meetings throughout the year that are online. So I think those are on the MASC, and I've gone to one, I think, but it's really interesting to go to those and sort of be part of that process, because we are all sort of directing our delegates about what we're deciding on for legislative priorities. So
I realized how unaware I was of how the system really works as a new school committee member, and it made me wonder if we should have a conversation, maybe as part of a summer retreat, about whether we want to consciously try to have more of a voice. We're small, but we're mighty, right? And would we like to consciously try to engage a little bit more systematically, maybe, with this group? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for stepping out. My husband and I, we work at home for the past like 20 years, and we always say it's great to go outside. Like, it's just great to go outside and meet with other people, and you're like, wow, this is really interesting. So thank you for going outside. Okay, so the next item is we have an amendment to the superintendent's employment contract. That contract amendment was put in your drives, and so you've had time to review. If anybody has any questions or comments, we can take those now. Okay. All right. Well, then I will seek a motion to approve the superintendent's contract amendment as presented in the documentation. Should we do a voice vote for this?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Okay. Second that. Okay. And we'll do a voice vote starting.
Lorenz, yes.
Altieri, yes.
Riley, yes.
Oaks, yes.
Delisi, yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have any other? Do we have a need for executive session?
We do not.
And okay, I must wait.
Kathy, it's been an honor to serve with you. You've been a great leader for us this year. I've learned a lot from you in my 2 years on school committee. I have felt welcomed and encouraged, and I really appreciate your kindness and your voice for students, your relentless focus on what is best for students. I think that's been a gift to the community, and it's been a pleasure to serve with you.
Thank you. It has been, like I said, an honor and a privilege. And as much as we joke about getting our free time back, it makes me appreciate everybody out there that is working above and beyond at 9 o'clock at night. So thank you for your time. And so, do I have a motion to end the Wednesday, May 7th school committee meeting?
Second.
Good night, everybody. Yay! Thank you. Thank you, guys.